Ready? Here we go.
Different points of view and highs and lows. A new perspective everywhere you go. Open up your mind, drown out the noise, and see if this connected. And see if this connected.
Our special guests and very special guests are people who are my friends and who've been here before. And one of the most wonderful things that we want to share on this episode of This Connected is something that's near and dear to my heart: mental health. And importantly, mental health within the spectrum of our Catholic faith. So on that note, what you're going to have today is a really great treat. So hold on. All right. So we're back. And so here we are. And look at the guest that we have here.
That's me.
It is Jacob. But you know what? Since the last time you were here, Jacob, things have changed. And we need to talk about that. And still, a lot of the things that we talk about mental health wise, the things that are important in life is actually self-care. But I totally and completely admire the things that you have accomplished, because actually almost jealous like, man, I wish I would have done that.
I don't know if you are. I just spent 15 minutes crying in the car.
We're going to have a really great conversation on that. I don't know if he's going to share that, but this is going to be a really great conversation. I'm having coffee. And Jacob's having water because he said he's caffeinated out.
I need to replenish the tears.
Replenish the tears. And I'm drinking coffee. And so on this episode, basically, as usual, we don't have a script. We just have a conversation. But I do have an agenda. We're going to talk about you. Okay. We're going to talk about you. I have a couple of questions that's near and dear to my heart. So before anything else, make sure that I have all the things. I know how to use this because I don't. Right. But since we've last met, you were working at another facility, and now you're doing something else. But that's because you finished. You totally finished. So tell us about you. Tell our people out there who you are.
Okay. Wow. Let's see. I didn't send you a bio this time, because it needs to be updated. It's funny whenever that happens. Everybody knows Tony, right? So yeah. I work with Tony and I work with Arnell, and so every time we collaborate on something, I feel like my bio needs an update. So I guess we'll do that today, right? So my name is Jacob Escobedo, and I guess the bio update is that I am now a licensed clinical social worker. Before, I was a registered associate for the other two episodes that we've done together now. Yeah. So this is number 3. Wow.
Holy Trinity,
yeah. So basically what that means is that I have accumulated my hours of clinical experience supervised by a licensed therapist. I did so in various settings. It's work. It's not like internship. It is professional. It's professional experience. But that was 3,000 hours, several years, bunch of trainings. Yeah, 3,000. Yeah, it's we were also working through a pandemic. I got a second master's during that time.
What was that on?
So my first master's was in pastoral studies. No, sorry. My first master's was in social work, and then my second master's was in pastoral studies. It was my Jesus degree. That's how I refer to it.
It is important to have that Jesus degree.
It is. And some people laugh at me because I say, okay, I didn't mean to sound pretentious, but when I said it's my leisure degree, but I didn't mean it like, oh, I'm just like casually getting like degrees out of here, but I meant it in the way of like, I took my time with it. So when I finished my master's in social work, I took, only one class per semester when it came to my pastoral studies degree, just to really use it as enrichment and further formation in order to be trained and formed in the Catholic faith, so that I can more soundly and ethically integrate the Catholic faith into my clinical practice, because that's what I am as a clinical social worker. I'm a therapist. And so I think there's been a lot of changes over these years, and a lot of changes since our last podcast, including the opening of my practice,
which is called
Renovo Counseling Services.
Renovo Counseling Services. Yeah. Now, before we talk about Renovo Counseling Services, you spoke about, getting your master's and in pastoral theology and finishing, and now you're an LCSW.
Right.
And that's amazing, because most of the time when I used to work, now retired, but when I used to work, I used to refer people to resources of therapists. And it was very difficult to find therapists who were, let alone Christian, but it was almost nearly impossible to find therapists who were Catholic Christians.
Right.
And so what drove you to actually have a push to do that, to be a Catholic Christian therapist, rather than what a lot of times our young people will graduate and be social work, and they'll go out into the workforce because that's where money is, and they'll get hired by a hospital or a clinic, and they're Catholic, but they're just therapists, and they separate their faith and their work. So is that for you? Is that something for you, that you're separating work and faith? Because one I just want to add is what I just admired about you is that you got that master's in pastoral theology, which means that you will be able to work more in depth understanding our faith. But then you have this huge knowledge of what your profession is, which is therapist.
Right. So I love this connected podcast because we get to have authentic conversations, and even, occasionally and friendly, but that's not a word. I see. I told you, I'm a little cried out. I'm a little exhausted.
We get to throw things at each other.
Yeah. So we get to challenge. So I'm going to challenge that. Just because I've been in the secular workforce this whole time, and I still am, even though I've opened my practice, I haven't fully transitioned out of the secular workforce. And I don't know at what rate that's going to happen. I'm still there. But I think as being a Catholic in the world, there's this real need for integration. And you hinted at that in this idea of like there being a separation. And I think that for some people, there probably is. Right? There's this compartmentalization. There's this like, okay, here at church, I'm Church Jacob, and here at work, I'm Work Jacob, and right. And really, I've been praying for the Lord to just like knock down those walls, because me too, I feel like, yeah, there is some compartmentalization. There is some places maybe where I'm not. I will need the Lord to help me live more authentically in certain spaces and be consistent, right? But it's definitely still been a part of my journey, even working in settings like county settings and school-based settings, because I see my work as a calling. Right. Whether I'm explicitly talking about matters of faith and spirituality, which I will say, even in secular settings, it does come up. And those conversations are usually client led and client directed. And that's when we're able to engage in that exploration and talking about their client's faith as a resource, and being able to tap into that sometimes. But just at a foundational level, especially as a social worker, we have this commitment to the dignity of the human person.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of been the way that I've conceptualized my work since I came out of grad school, since I finished grad school and went into the workforce, regardless of me identifying as a Catholic counselor on the side of I did that. That was kind of my. I always said that's my volunteer gig. It's my Jesus gig. But I still think even like I said, working in secular settings, that calling to honor the dignity and worth of the human person that we're working with, and meeting their needs and being Christ-like to them and bringing light to their lives and helping them heal wounds. I still see mission totally integrated in that. So it hasn't been a full separation for me. And I will say that there are people, and there are Catholics who will still work in the secular workforce, and maybe they're not called to go into private practice and be a Catholic therapist strictly, because there's probably work for them to be done in the field. Maybe there's souls and lives that need to be touched, that need and require their gifts, right?
Yeah.
But for me, I think the Lord has definitely had this plan. I'll go back to your question now. I think I decided to move in this direction. And like I said, I'm saying it like that because I haven't made the full jump yet. It's a gradual transition. But I'm moving in this direction because that's the plan that the Lord showed me, put in my lap almost. I wanted to, I think I said this in the first episode that we did. I wanted to leave social work altogether when I was at the bachelor's level. And I was like, you know what? I don't know if this is for me. I'm going to go work for the church. I'm going to work in the diocesan pastoral center, and I'll get a master's in theology at some point. Maybe I'll just go mission work in another country or focus, or I don't know what I was going to do. And I just remember that there was this call in my heart the call in my heart was made known to me by this lack of peace in that.
Yeah.
I didn't feel at peace with that plan. And the Lord was like, ¿Por qué no los dos? Like that commercial, the taco or the tortilla commercial or whatever. Why not both?
Yeah, why not both? And I love your response. And literally, your response, not your response here, which is beautiful, but how you responded to God's call. Because a lot of times what we do is we don't respond to God's call the way that we want to, because it's too hard. That's not what I want to do. It's what God wants to do. But it's that whole thing. God calls. Calls who? Calls you. When I was working EAP, as you said, integrating your faith with work was always there. And you said, it's patient-led. It's when they open up, then you can open up and share, but not, it's them directing it. And I remember the most beautiful conversations we had were their responses, "You're a Christian?" And them breathing a sigh of relief that there's a person of faith on the other side of the table who's listening to them, and not a person who's, what one of my people said, feels like an empty shell. And I'm not categorizing people that they are, but when someone is seeking someone of faith, I think they're relieved when they find someone who is of faith that they speak to. So having the ability to integrate that is a wonderful thing. And I do believe, as you said, you're placed in the secular world to be that beacon of light. Because, if you're just going to be like that Catholic therapist and you're only going to speak to other Catholics, then what about all the other people, right?
Right. And that's been a key piece, I think, of developing my mission and my plan for my practice. It's definitely being open to serving anybody, serving people whose clinical needs align with my experience, and what but when you'll see that all over my website and stuff like that, my little blurbs, because obviously there's going to be a lot of people who, because of my scope of practice or scope of competence, that I may not be the best fit, because I may not have training in a specific area. So when I'm saying I'm open to all, I mean that I'm open to all who's to whom I can provide competent and effective services, right? Who I can help, people who I know how to help. And this kind of opens a conversation that we have that frequently on Catholic therapist Instagram.
I watch those.
There's a few of us on there, and some questions have come up before of like, is it necessary that a Catholic should seek therapy from a Catholic therapist? And I always say, look, speaking from personal experience, that was something that was really important to me when I was looking for a therapist, because I too have needed to be on the other side of the chair. And I recommend that all therapists do that, because it's a different perspective that you get to take in the healing relationship. You know, as therapists, we're the helpers, we're the providers. But when you're doing your own therapy, you're receiving, and you really have to sometimes even work hard to be like, okay, I'm not the therapist here. Stop trying to write a progress note in your mind as the therapist is doing their thing, right?
Stop analyzing the therapist.
Exactly.
Stop analyzing the therapist.
But so for me, yeah, it was important to have a Catholic therapist, and I found a Catholic therapist that had experience and training in for what I needed, right? And there's also going to be situations and people where their needs, it might be difficult based on their needs. It might be difficult for them to find a Catholic therapist who's trained in that specialty area. And so, yeah, I think in those situations, you know, going to a secular therapist who has excellent training and ability to also be culturally responsive and respectful to one's beliefs. And that's definitely a question clients can ask in their little consultation call that they get. Usually most therapists give like a little consultation, or they're able to ask during the assessment, during the first appointment, about their approach towards psychospiritual interventions or discussions that may come up in therapy, how they treat matters of faith and religion within the therapeutic relationship. And you know, I think that there's a lot of talented non-Catholic therapists out there I've worked with, and I've referred to, and I've studied with several. So, but I just also think that there is a place for Catholics in the mental health field to create that opportunity for people to seek care in which they feel totally, fully safe to discuss their beliefs, and also not waste time, you know, explaining things, explaining their beliefs. Someone who's skilled and knowledgeable, and sometimes gets it. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned culturally,
right?
You know, someone who already understands where you're coming from. And you mentioned, you know, to ask the therapist questions. And in my experience, a lot of people who are sent to therapy or referred to don't ask questions because they didn't know that they could. It's like, I'm referred to this therapist, or I chose this therapist, and they're going to resolve my issues. But I think that's something we need to be able to tell people, that you need to find a therapist that is your therapist, and you can ask those questions. And if it didn't work with that one, then seek someone else. You know, I find so many people who's like, yeah, I tried therapy, I didn't work out, didn't like the guy. So you stopped? It's like, yeah. So I figured they're all the same. They're not all the same. They're not all the same. Yeah. And I think that's difficult. Now, many people will contact me and say, where can I find a therapist for my child, for my adult child, my family member, myself, my husband, my parent? And where can I find them? And where can I find Catholic therapists? And I'm like, well, I don't know. Like, Google? But again, when you simply Google, a lot of people, especially in our space, they want to know that it came from someone that knew that person so that they feel safe.
Right.
Because therapy, for a lot of our community, and especially most of our listeners, we're not a culture that seeked out therapy. You sucked it up and pulled yourself up from your bootstraps. I mean, for people who don't know, majority of our listeners are immigrants or second generation immigrants who don't go out and seek therapy. It's a sign of weakness. In the Hispanic community and Filipino community, there's a thing called, it's almost like you're shamed. So where can they find resources of finding therapists who, as you said, gets where they're coming from, culturally understand already instead of having to explain it.
Okay. So the social worker in me is gonna jump on the mic really quickly first by honoring, I think, the difficulty that exists within finding a therapist, for one, but also more specifically than finding a Catholic therapist, because first off, like, sometimes when it comes to looking for a therapist, depending on your community, there may be really long wait lists. It may take a really long time to get into somewhere, so there's definitely access issues. We've come a long way, and I know for you working in a state system, you've probably seen the progress throughout the years, and we probably have made a lot of strides, right? But there are still access issues today, especially when we have a high need in certain areas, and then there's an oversaturation of clients in one particular area and not enough providers. So I first want to say, like, I don't think I have the answers, but definitely want to bring to light that is an issue that a lot of people face, first off. And the next thing is, like, well, insurance and payment, co-pays, super bills, right? Especially when it comes to looking for a Catholic therapist. I'm on Medi-Cal. I'm on IHP, which is the managed care in our area, right? For Medi-Cal. Or I have this specific insurance through my work. I have this specific EAP through my work. And but I do want a specific type of therapist. I want a therapist who has excellent high quality training in XYZ, or I want a therapist that is Catholic or is Protestant or Christian or whatever type of niche or specialty, right? And then you go online and you look us up, and it's like cash pay.
Yeah.
Cash pay only, does not accept this insurance at this time, because and this is no knock on Catholic therapists or any therapist who's cash pay only, but this speaks to more systemic issues that we have in the mental health field, myself included right now, as I'm not accepting insurances until I have an office space that I can list as for my application to insurance panels. So before I get there, I have to build. to have enough money to pay for an office space,
No.
right? I just don't come out ready to be like, okay, here's my brick and mortar, and come see me. I have enough money to sustain the high rent prices that we're dealing with, right?
Exactly.
So that's an access and systemic issue there, and but yeah, it is difficult for clients. I think definitely, because then they have to pay out of pocket for these services.
I think it's important to know that. I think this is information that is good to hear. Because I think a lot of times we get into the aspect that, oh, he's a Catholic therapist. Let's go to him and, everything is free. But as we know, we need to be able to sustain ourselves. And so that's the reality of our system. And that's why we want you to be on here so that our family can support family. Because, that's what we need to do. So to look at that, let's look at this.
Yeah.
Which is Renovo Counseling Services, which you just started. When did this start? Because I'm like, I didn't see this happening.
I got my license in January after several years of it being overdue. I've been in the field 5+ years now. So usually it's not usually, but I would say like the standard that we hope to get a license is the standard time is 2 years, but it took me a little longer. But got my license earlier in January, and immediately started working on building. So getting the paperwork in. So definitely all the process started in end of January. And as far as the website launch, this was a couple weeks ago, pretty much. This is a brand new baby.
You all need to visit this site. It's renovocounseling.org, as he said, because com already was taken. So Renovo, what does that mean?
Yeah, so the naming process was so hard, because I was like, all right, are we going to saint name? Are we doing like, I don't know, a title of Our Lady? It was, and I said, okay.
Our Lady, what did we say earlier?
Our Lady of Endure of Knots. Our Lady of
no, we won't mention that one.
Our Lady of Help Me.
Our Lady of Help Me.
Our Lady of Help Me, please.
We do have an Our Lady of Good Help.
Yes, we do. So I was praying, because I said, Lord, help me. What do I name this thing? It's yours. It's for you. And I also wanted to be mindful of how can I keep myself open to serve my community as a whole, beyond my Catholic community, right? Even though I know it's going to be the bulk of my caseload and the bulk of my clientele, or at least that's what I'm praying, right? Praying for. But I definitely wanted to still be a service to my community at large, and essentially create something that's gonna put a name that's gonna have meaning to me and be consistent with my values and my faith and my tradition, and something that is also going to be palpable for maybe even non-Catholics. So I was like, okay, still didn't have the answer. I put it in prayer. And I asked the question, like, well, what is it that I do? What is this work, Lord? What have you called me to? And so the word that popped into my head was restore, renew. And so I said, okay, I'm Catholic. The official language of our church is Latin. Let me pop this into Google real quick. And so yeah, Renovo came up as kind of having a meaning of renewal, restoration, revival. And I thought, okay, what a beautiful concept that those things can come from this service, from this work, that people who are having challenges can come and receive those things. And not because of me.
And that's a beautiful word. Renewal.
Yeah.
And literally, someone who's going through therapy is desiring something, a change,
Right.
to be renewed. Renovo Counseling Services, RCS.
Yes.
And I was reading this, and it's like our mission, even have the mission statement.
Right.
Our mission is to embody the essence of our name, to restore, renew, and revive. We need to make shirts.
Yes.
Or stickers.
Both.
Yeah.
And
we're committed to honoring the dignity and worth of our clients, recognizing the unique strengths and experiences that each individual, couple, or family brings to the therapeutic process. Through compassionate and effective therapy, we strive to create a safe and supportive environment where healing can take place. We believe in the power of collaboration, working hand in hand with our clients and their families to develop skills and strategies that promote healthy change and growth. I love this ending. With empathy, respect, and a commitment to excellence, we are dedicated to accompanying our clients on their journey towards renewed well-being and a revitalized sense of self. I'm going to make an appointment.
I cannot take full credit for this because my wonderful intern, we'll call her an intern, and I'll just leave it at that. Yeah. Wonderful intern, CG. She helped me with this, and she's been a blessing. So there's a lot of people and behind, I think, this launch who have been supporting me, a great community of faithful people and just supportive, loving individuals who just had my back. And so I'm not alone in starting this. This really is it is my practice. It is my name on it, but there's a community behind this.
That's an exciting thing. That's the excitement of it all. I love this. You're licensed clinical social worker. And it's right here where it says, you specialize in trauma, grief, anxiety, and depression. That literally spells out Catholic. But this is literally what so many of our community struggles with, and they're seeking answers. And to bring into the conversation, a lot of the times, our community of faithful will go to their priest, will go to their deacon, and nothing against going to clergy. But in speaking to other clergy who are really great, they simply say and refer them to a therapist who can help them through the process, who also understands resources available for them in the community. So I love priests who are able to do that instead of saying, okay, well, let's talk and, give you spiritual direction regarding this, because sometimes what you need is actual therapy, a therapist.
Know your scope, know your role.
Scope.
Yeah, know your scope, know your role for sure. And I think that was, I did a training for a local youth ministry core team, and I said, look, you guys serve our youth. You are on the front line. I'm here to teach you how to respond effectively to crisis that may occur within the context of your ministry. But I'm not deputizing you as a counselor. I'm not trying to make you be a counselor or a therapist, right? Always remember your role, know your scope, and then know when to refer.
Know when to refer. That is very important. Which, when you said Speaking workshops and trainings is provided as well. If you go to the website, it says upon request with advance notice, Renovo Counseling can provide speakers for speaking engagements at retreats, conferences, and panels, and leading workshops and organizational trainings. I love that. There is a complete need for ministries, especially youth and young adult ministries, to have training on how to engage their youth and young adults who struggle with mental health, and many a times it's like, what do I do? Well, I've been praying for them. What do you do? Have the resources to refer. And I think them knowing right here, renovocounseling.org, and going to these resources, you'll be able to help and make your ministry better. Put that in your calendar in providing training. Get a workshop. Have a professional speak to your group that can teach. And as Jacob says, not deputizing you, but engaging you to understand what those resources are, how to listen, how to observe, and how to refer. Those are the most important things. It's kind of like what ministry is.
And this is the social worker in me. I think that service is definitely a branch of my mission to help educate and to break down stigma that we have in our communities of color, communities of faith, just community in general, about mental health and help seeking. And I love being able to start conversations and teach. I think it's so important. So that's kind of like my community piece there. The mezzo social worker in me.
And the age groups that you serve. I love this. Children's 5+, adolescents, college students, young adults, and I love this part. Seminarians, priests, religious, discerning. And then there's couples.
Yes.
I think it's also important, as a lot of our listeners are now becoming young adults who are becoming, looking at that into the sacrament of marriage, is engage newlyweds and parents. I think it's important for people who are engaged, who find out that, I'm going to get married. What does that mean? Start yourself off in a really good way to understand, and having someone guiding you throughout that process. So I love this. Jacob.
Yeah.
Tell us more.
Yeah. So you will actually see on my page that I have a separate page for my Catholic faith-based specialization somewhere. I think it's up on the top. If you go to I think it's in my services. So this is just our intro page. So you get a lot of information right off the bat. But if you dig a little more, we talk a little more about our services that we offer. I'm able to provide services to anybody in California, which is pretty cool.
Telehealth is amazing.
Yes.
That's a savior.
It is. I do definitely understand, though, that a lot of people after COVID have been a little burnt out on Zoom and telehealth, but for a lot of people, it still remains a very convenient option and still effective. I get this question a lot, and some people say, like, do you think the efficacy of therapy decreases when you're working on telehealth? And I say, well, I'm not going to speak for everybody, because there are people who have strong preferences for in-person connection. I support that. I respect that. I understand that. And I think that for a lot of people, that is true. That is the case. It can be pretty exhausting, trying to look at a screen and really trying to take in the other person, in terms of, by take in, I mean, receiving their communications, because communication is not just verbal, it's also nonverbal, and it's our facial expressions and little things that we pick up in person, right? But I also think for a lot of people who live in communities where it's not necessarily possible for them to find a Catholic therapist near them, or just therapists in general. Services are really hard to find and hard to acquire. So telehealth provides that distance option.
I completely agree. My search for an appropriate therapist, I couldn't find it in the areas that were provided. Telehealth expanded that to be able to find a therapist that fit what I wanted in a therapist, and telehealth worked with that. I was one of those who was a little apprehensive at first, but the way the process has changed since the onset of telehealth is amazing. The follow-up and follow-through and the ability to actually communicate with emails and the actual interaction face-to-face, well, Zoom-to-face kind of was helpful. And for people who are introverts like me, it took away some of the fears of coming face-to-face physically with someone. I think having that barrier with just we're not in the physical room together, kind of made it a little easier to wean me into an actual in-person. So it took away that, I got to go to the therapist office, or I have to go to the doctor's office. For the people that I served, it made it a lot easier, especially in busy lives. Everyone's busy, and now I can meet with my therapist at this time. I have a scheduled appointment at 2:30. I can take my lunch at 2:30. So that's an amazing thing that is provided, and I'm glad that you have that as a service. What else, Jacob?
Well,
what else? Our services. So you guys got to search out his site right here. All his services, his contact information on here. Also, if you want to visit him on Instagram, that's usually how we communicate, through DM.
Yes.
His Instagram handles are,
Clinically Catholic.
Clinically Catholic.
That is my alliteration. I love alliteration.
What is the image?
So it's an R with water streaming out into a bowl of water. So I think water is a strong symbol of renewal, restoration, refreshment, cleansing. So
Washing feet.
yeah, definitely.
Use. Baptism. Oh yeah, renewal. I love this. Also, if you guys actually just seek him out on the internet,
You'll find me.
You'll find him Catholic Therapist on catholictherapist.com. If you just simply type up Jacob as well.
Yeah, circling back to your question earlier, because I went on my soapbox a little bit. How do we find services? And so, yes, Google is a valuable tool. You can also, depending on your insurance, you can also always check with your insurance provider, and they can provide you referrals to therapists in your area. Usually, though, they're gonna pick the closest person, or the person that has availability, and say, here, call this number. So that's one way. Also, if you are a Medi-Cal, or for here in California, it's referred to as Medi-Cal, not Medicare, because we want to have our own name for things as Californians, right?
Of course.
So if you have Medi-Cal, definitely your county behavioral health department will have a list of providers and be able to refer you. You can also use psychologytoday.com, type in your zip code, and you can also let's show them how to make filters. So let's go to you can do that. You can put the zip. You can put the zip or the city.
Zip code here. Let's type in what?
Or you could type in city too. You can type in Palm Springs,
California.
Yeah. So you can filter your results. If you go up, how do you filter? It used to filters, all filters.
Oh, all filters.
All filters. Okay, so let's say I have ADHD, And so I want to find a therapist that works with ADHD. Okay. And I can go back to filters and scroll down. And let's go down to insurance. And I have Blue Cross.
Blue Cross.
And then let's go back to the filters one more. And guess what? I want someone who's trained in EMDR therapy. Is it there? Check, show more types of therapy.
Where's that?
The little blue.
Oh.
Okay. Do they not have EMDR there? Are you serious? Oh, go down. There we go.
There it is.
Mm-hmm. So now with all those filters, it is showing me providers in my area who are treat ADHD. They listed ADHD as one of their treatment services. They take my insurance, and then they also provide EMDR therapy. They're trained in EMDR therapy. So you can really be specific on the filters. If you looked at those other filters that they had there, you can also filter based off of the gender of the therapist that you're searching for, other issues, ethnicity, language, so on and so forth. So this is a great resource. And Catholic therapists and Christian therapists do advertise on here. It's just sometimes they're a little harder to find.
Yeah. Usually it's a group like Crossroads right here.
Right. So but you definitely can this is one resource, right? But if you are looking specifically for a Catholic therapist, then you can do the same thing on catholictherapist.com.
Right here.
Yeah, this is Psychology Today for us Catholics who want.
catholictherapist.com. Same filters, same abilities to actually select them. Jacob's on here.
Yes.
And has this information based out of Riverside, California, has his phone number. You can send him information. You can contact him. And yeah, all of that. So all of this information, I think, is really great service to our community to be able to actually locate someone to seek help confidentially so that, you can live out truly those lives of holiness, things that are holding you back. We have this thing in retreats where, removing those backpacks, those bricks off of you. And I think a lot of times what we need to do is speak to a therapist. I'm so glad that you've made it all the way through. What's next? Doctorate?
Let me let me rest.
No pressure.
Did my mom call you? Did my mom get on the phone? My mom, my godmother. Oh my goodness.
That is such a Catholic dad thing to say. So Gen X. So what's next?
My mom just wants, she's trying to talk me into it. It'll be great.
She's like, I always wanted a doctor.
Yeah,
or a priest.
she's like, we'll call you Dr. J. And I'm like, okay, Mom. I said, it's hard. She goes, no, it's not. I said, Mom, my mom has no higher education. She's a beautifully smart lady, and she's actually really helpful backing me up with the launch. But she, whenever I say, Ma, it's hard, she goes, no, it's not. But that's because she has so much confidence and love in me. She says, I say that because one time I told her, I said, Mom, that's kind of invalidating you. I tell you that I'm struggling and you're over here saying no. But she goes, but you don't, she's like, you don't understand. She's like, I've seen you do so much and I've seen you work so hard. And she says, you can do it. Yeah. That's why I say it. I said, okay, Mom, I'll let you off the hook with that.
I love moms. I love how, our successes are their successes. And we allow them to live vicariously through us, especially when our parents don't have the higher education that we've attained. We offer that up to our parents because we did not do this alone.
Right.
We cannot do this alone. And it's through them, their support, and their prayers. They're probably burning the candles at both ends and praying to all the saints and angels and asking for that support. And She's doing a good job.
Yeah. So we'll give it some time for me to discern on that. Definitely. I'm just trying to get the practice off the ground, and things are going well. But once that's a little more stable and I have a little more flexibility in my schedule with my own practice, I can look into that, because it's definitely been on my heart. More so because that would get me in the door for teaching, which I really do want to do. Because otherwise, it's like what I think I had to reflect for a little while, and say, okay, here I am doing all the things, adding a bunch of letters to my name, taking trainings and doing this. What is my motivation for this? Right? Is it because I'm feeling inadequate, not enough in one area, and so I need to do all these things in order to make me more credible, more, I don't know, marketable, attractive, more lovable? That's something that I've had to really is that really adding to my worth and value? No, it's adding to my experience and my education, but it's like the foundation is really important, which all of us have: dignity, worth, and value, because we are made in the image and likeness of God, right? And that's where it starts. Everything else is just secondary. So I think for, when I was doing all the things, involved in all the different ministries and tacking on letters to my name and studying and always go, like, it was like, okay, what is going on here? What's really the motivation? Because if it's a healthy motivation that I'm doing this because I want to seek these things because they're going to be a tool for me in my vocation and fulfillment of my calling, okay, then let's do it. But if there's another motivation that's rooted in something else that is a falsehood, it's not true, it's not of God, it's not beautiful, it's not good, then that's where I think I was like, okay, let me pray, discern, and see what's next. So I don't know, doctorate maybe, who knows? It's something that I think sometimes I feel like I just didn't want it to be like, oh, I'm getting the doctorate so people can call me doctor, so my mom can say Dr. J. I want it because it would be continuing my education, my intellectual formation to better equip me to serve my community. Amen. And I think one day, I may need to get it because my call will shift to higher education, so that I can teach the next generation of social workers. I don't know when that'll be. And God hasn't given the answer there.
Well, we have
yet.
time.
Yeah.
You're so young.
Time.
You're so young. And you're right now fishing out there. But when you do get that doctorate.
DSW.
Yeah. When you do get that doctorate and be able to cast out that huge wide net, our community and our young people in school need people like you to educate. And you need to share all that wealth and knowledge that you've gained, that you've been blessed with, to that world, that community. I love that you're doing workshops. I'm praying that all of you out there who are listening are going to contact him to get these workshops because they're so good. And I pray that one day you will be teaching higher education, because that's where we need to form more disciples. So, amen.
Thank you. Amen.
Any last words, Jacob?
Well, if you're listening to this and, I could be your therapist, or maybe I'm not the right fit. Maybe you're like, this guy is not really my cup of tea. Okay. But if you feel a call that maybe it's time to go to therapy, please utilize the resources that we've provided here, or you can even reach out. I'm not disrespected. I don't feel disrespected or hurt if someone reaches out and says, you know what, I I would like some referrals and resources to somewhere else. That's okay. I'm here to serve. That's sort of the ness, right? I'm here to be a social worker. I'm a social worker who wants to make sure that my community has access to resources, whether it's me or whether it's someone else. So I'll put that call out there first. And then secondly, if you are someone who is interested in learning more about the mental health field, definitely can reach out to me as well. Ask questions. You can, if you have a college assignment where you need to interview a social worker or talk to someone in the field, I'm your guy. I love doing that for students. And I've also, taken on a little unofficial mentorship role of a couple Catholics who want to be therapists and are studying to be therapists. And if that's you, you could also reach out to me. I won't be your supervisor. That's not you will already have that, I'm sure, in your program, but I'll definitely be someone who can walk beside you and encourage you and cheer you on as you navigate the mental health field as a Catholic.
Amazing. Well, thank you, Jacob, for coming on the show. And thank you for blessing us with all the information and with your talent, your gifts, to be able to share, to be able to minister to our community. Mm. It always warms my heart when young adults like you, committed to the faith, committing to helping others, completely flourish. Mm. And now it's our role as the body of Christ to now utilize his skills and support you in your endeavors. And I know it's going to make the entire community so much better because of that. So on that note, fam, if you have any questions or comments, or if you want to reach out, email us at catholic.dad50@gmail.com. Also, if you want to support the program, we still accept patrons on our Patreon page. Check out on the description of how to do that. All of our funds that you donate supports this podcast and then goes out to be donated to youth ministries or youth or any people who are asking for assistance. So on that note, thank you again, Jacob, for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
We ask you to live a life of holiness, be blessed, and be third, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.